Hello kiddos, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I want to talk to you about audiobooks because I actually haven't seen, like in many other videos, recommendation about audiobooks. And since it's a format that is gaining more popularity, I want to recommend some of them to you so you can go and listen. These are, of course, my favorite ones, but if you have any recommendations, please leave me on the comment down below because I would love to listen to new ones. Well, since last year, I discovered this format. I was also getting more used to listening to podcasts, and I think that it's actually like a super entertaining activity, and I've been listening to so many good stories. So I want to share with you my favorite one. And if you're curious and you're also the type of people like me that you like to listen to audiobooks while being at the gym, just keep on watching this video. Okay, the first one that I want to recommend is Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Sonner. I haven't read many biographies beside Untamed and Greenlight by Matthew McConaughey, and the feeling that I got with Crying in H-Mart has been much more superior than any of the other biographies that I have read. And the point of the book is like it focuses on this particular moment in her life while she is finding out that her mom is getting sick. So she has to change completely all of her life plans just to be there with her mom. And one of the things that her mom used to share the most was the passion for food and Korean food. And once her mom is no longer with her, she started going to the same supermarket that she used to go with her mom and get the same ingredients because she wants to cook the same food. But you find out that there are some emotional things attached to the elements that you use in your daily life, that when someone is not around, it actually doesn't feel like it's the same. If you go to some place that you used to go with some friends that you're no longer friends anymore, or some ex and you are not dating anymore, now you find out that those places are still the same, but it doesn't feel the same to you. Get all these melancholic feelings, and that's exactly what this book gives me. And the good thing about the audiobook, and that's why I recommend it to you, is because it's read by Michelle, and that gives it like more power. And I listened to this book not when I was at the gym, but I was walking in the mall, just like doing my grocery shopping and like just walking around. And a lot of the things that she was saying were so resonating with me that in a lot of moments I had like a lump on my throat and I was just walking around with like blurry eyes, and I was like, this is actually really, really good. So if you're curious about reading that one, just give a chance to the audiobook because it totally deserves it. On the same category, I heard Greenlight by Matthew McConaughey, and I have to say it's a very funny book. It has a lot of self-help type of stories, but you can understand why he is the person that he is, and it's basically because of his confidence in himself. And it's so funny because you're just walking at the mall, you're very pacific and just like listening to a live story, and out of nowhere he starts screaming and saying bumper stick, and he screams like a very abrupt comment at you, like slap on your face.
Note to self: sometimes you have etc., sometimes etc. has you. Note to self: just because the seats are empty doesn't mean they're not taken. Sometimes the guest list needs to be for one you.
I would recommend it, but to be honest, the fact that he screams that much in a point, it started like being a little bit annoying. So in this category, I give my vote to Crying in H-Mart. The other book that I want to recommend to you is The House in the Cerulean Sea. I wanted to read the book, but I had like so many books on my TBR pile, and I have so many books at home that I was thinking I shouldn't be spending more money in books. So I give a chance to the audiobook in this case. It's a fantasy story, and it's about this guy called Linus. He's a teacher, and he's called to go to this sort of an island, and there's a school for special people with powers. All these kids has been put a part of society just because they think that they're not going to integrate with the rest of the society as good. So they think that it's better just to put them on this place and tell them how to behave. So this guy goes in there, and since that moment the book is more about a metaphor on how we use discrimination in life just to deal with the fact that we're actually scared of people that are different to us. In that case, I think it's a very deep book, and it's a very emotional one in a couple of episodes. And the good thing about the audiobook is the amount of voices that the narrator does. There are so many characters, and each one of them has their own particular voice, and sometimes while I was listening to it, I actually kind of think like how focused you have to be just like to remember which voice corresponds to each one of these characters. You can imagine all these people that are living in the island. It has some beautiful quotes, it has a really nice message. Yeah, I actually like it a lot. The other one is one that I have to recommend, that I can make this list without that book, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six, because the cast makes it so much superior. The story itself is so captivating that when I read the book, I could actually imagine everything that was going around, just like as if I were reading some interview from the Rolling Stones, because Daisy Jones and the Six is a story about this girl called Daisy, who's the singer in a band, and you get to understand what problems they were dealing with during the time that the band was together and what makes them fall apart. It has so many feelings surrounding the story and so many emotions, mostly between like two characters that I'm not going to say who they are to not spoil anything. And I think actually the audiobook has been the winner of so many awards. Totally deserves it. So if you are looking for something like that, give it a chance. And one that has been recommended but I haven't listened to yet, it's called The Final Revival of Opal and Ned. I heard that it's a very similar story to Daisy Jones and the Six in the case that it talks about a band. I haven't read the book or heard the audiobook, but I heard that the audiobook is really nice, and if you like Daisy Jones and the Six, you're going to enjoy that one. So give it a chance. And since we're talking about romantic stories in the middle of another story, I think that I want to recommend, of course, some romantic books that you can enjoy. And one of them, for me, it's going to be Beach Read. I really enjoy that audiobook, and I really like the fact that the whole narration adds much to the characters, because you can enjoy the full experience just by the way that it's told. And the story, it's really nice and easy to follow. And I think that sometimes it's really important when you're listening to audiobooks, because you are listening to it while you're doing something else. So if it's something like really complicated that you have to focus too much, sometimes you find it hard to follow if you're doing some other activity that requires a little bit of your attention. It's about this girl who is just going over the fact that her dad passed away, and she goes to the house that they have at the beach and where they usually spend the summers in. And so she goes to that house and trying to write her new book. And there she meets another guy who is also a writer, but he's more writing thrillers and mystery books, and her genre is more romance. So decided to switch the genres, and she will write some mystery book and he will write some romance book, and they decided to do some investigation together, and we know where that is going to lead, but it's super enjoyable. I recommend you listen to that one just because it is super entertaining. Emily Henry develops the characters in a way that you will find so lovable, and you will fall so much for them. And on the same category of romantic books, I would recommend the audiobook of November 9 by Colin Hoover. November 9 is the story of Fallon and Ben, and the thing is like they meet in a November 9 that it's an important date for her because of an accident that she had, and their story is basically what they're going to live on each day of these years. But the first rule that they have is like they're not going to write each other in any other moment of the year. That is the only day that they're going to write each other, and they're going to catch up and do something, and they're going to fall in love. I really don't think that it's something that will happen in reality, because if I see someone only one time per year, there will come a moment when you are just going to move on with your life. If you leave that on the side and not pretend that this is a real story, I think you're going to enjoy it. And what I think that the audiobook adds to this story is the fact that you have the two point of views, and first you hear her point of view and her side of the story, and then the story continues with his point of view. And I think it's a really wholesome book. It gives you like a lot of nice feelings, and it's also like Beach Read, it's really easy to read. And last but not least, I want to recommend some mystery books. I haven't heard actually many audiobooks on this genre, so I'm going to talk about the two of them that come first to my mind when I think about this genre. And the first of them is Verity by Colin Hoover. It wasn't my favorite book, but I like the way that the narrator is telling the story. It's about this woman that is called Verity. She writes books, and she's like super famous. And you have another woman on the other side that she's also a writer, and she's hired to complete the story that Verity started to write. And the only thing that they have to work, because Verity had an accident, the only thing that you have is the manuscripts that she wrote before. And the whole point of the book is that it's going to be not only mysterious, but also make you think a lot on whether it's reality or not what you're listening. So I really enjoy the audiobook version. I don't know if I read the book, I don't think that I would be as captivated as I was with the audiobook. And the last one is actually the one that I'm listening to right now, and it's called The Club by Ellery Lloyd. This book, it's also a suspense. It's the story of these people, these celebrities that goes around this island once a year. But the thing is, like, throughout the years, some mysterious things have been happening, and the one that starts this story is the fact that one person ended up dead. So while you start developing this story, you start thinking like, who might have done it, who was the one who died, and why. What I like about the audiobook, that I think it adds a lot to the story, is the fact that the narrator uses different accents. So every time that you hear one of the characters, you immediately recognize the voice, and I think it's such a powerful thing to do that adds a lot to the story and also makes it more enjoyable. Okay, here Eddie from the future with a quick update of the book The Club. I just finished the book like half an hour ago, and I really didn't like it at all. I actually thought of DNFing it so many times, but because I was over the 50% of the book, I decided not to. The audiobook version is much better than the book itself, I think, because it adds up the fact that they make so many voices and but the thing is, like, the story, it's really flat. You have a full cast of characters that don't add anything to the story, and it's supposed to be a suspenseful and thriller story, so it keeps you on the edge of your seat, but it goes really slow paced with many details that don't add anything to it. So when there are so many details and so many things that don't add to the story, you end up just like don't caring about it. And being a suspense book and being something that you actually should be engaged in order to enjoy the story, when that doesn't happen, you just stop caring about them. And in the end, I just wanted to end it and wanted to know what happened, and just because I was already there, but not because I really cared about the people. It wasn't something that worth all the hours that the audiobook lasts, so I don't recommend it at all. Just like my thumbs down. Is the first time that I give like such a bad review to a book, but I didn't enjoy it at all. And the other thing that I didn't like at all is that in the beginning of some chapters, you have a sentence that starts like continues from page 35, and you're like, what? Like, what happened in page 35? Like, so maybe if you don't have the physical book to follow it with the audiobook, you're really lost. I was super lost in some moments, and that's why I was just like losing interest, and I didn't care about the story or what happened to the characters. Yeah, the Eddie from the future is very disappointed about this book. Just read something different. And I guess let's just go back to the video. So yes, these are the audiobooks that I recommend you. If you haven't, just give them a chance. And if you have heard on any other audiobook and you have enjoyed it, please leave me on the comment down below, so I will be reading you down here. In the meantime, just don't forget to subscribe, to give a like to this video, and also to turn on the notification button so you find out every time that I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I actually have to go out right now, and you will find out why on my next video. Really, subscribe to this channel. See you next week. Mwah!